Hey everyone, Andrew back again and welcome to another video. And as you can tell from the title, I'm here with my top 20 slasher movies, my top 20 modern slasher movies, sorry. So any slasher from the year 2000 up until now. This is a follow-up to my previous video where I talked about my top 20 old school slasher flicks. Had a lot of fun doing this video, so definitely wanted to do a follow-up talking about my favourite modern slashers. So yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so first up we have Camp Slaughter, and this one's pretty underrated. I don't really hear too many people talk about this one, but this one is really good, and it's kind of unique and different, the way that the movie plays out. Basically, it's about a group of modern day teenagers who are out in the woods. Their car breaks down and they end up coming across a camp that is trapped in the 1980s. Obviously, as you can tell from the title, the camp gets slaughtered, and basically the nightmare replays over and over. The same day, the same events keep playing over and over, and essentially it's up to these modern day teenagers to try and stop that. Really high body count in this one, including one scene where there's a mass amount of kills at once, which is pretty cool. So that is Camp Slaughter. Next up we have Blood Night, The Legend of Mary Hatchet, and I've talked about this movie before. It stars Bill Moseley and Danielle Harris. Danielle Harris plays one of the main characters within this movie. This one is really good, and it has a really high body count. So if you like slashers with a lot of kills in it, definitely check this one out. Next up we have The Orphan Killer, and this is a low budget indie slasher flick and a really good one at that. I love the setting within this movie. I love the storyline with the whole sort of family themed story. It works really well within this movie. The killer looks great. There he is there on the cover, has a really awesome looking mask. Simple, but it looks awesome, and this one has some really good kills in it as well. So that is The Orphan Killer. Next up we have The Final Girls, and I probably don't really need to talk too much about this movie. It was pretty popular when it first came out, and for good reason. This one was really good. It's kind of a unique fan service take on the slasher genre, if you will, but it works really well. It's something different, and yeah, it's a great movie. So that's The Final Girls. Next up we have Gutterballs, and if you've never seen this movie before, please be warned that this is extreme, and I mean extreme. They don't hold back on the swearing. This movie is full of swearing. There's also a pretty graphic rape scene within this film as well, and just overall it's a very extreme style slasher flick. But I really like it. I like the setting. It's set in a bowling alley. The killer looks awesome, and this one has some really good kills in it. So that's Gutterballs. Next up we have My Super Psycho Sweet 16, and this is actually a trilogy series. So this is the first movie. Now, I wasn't really too sure what to expect going into this one when it first came out, because it's an MTV movie. But don't let that fool you, because this one is really good. Obviously, as you can tell from the title, it centers around a girl's 16th birthday, so it involves a party. And it's really good. I like all the characters. There's some pretty good kills in this one as well, especially for an MTV film. So that is My Super Psycho Sweet 16. Next up we have Bloody Homecoming, and this has been out for a while, and this kind of came out of nowhere. I wasn't really too sure what to expect. The cover is very generic, but don't let that put you off, because this is a really good slasher film. Obviously, as you can tell from the title, it's centered around a high school homecoming. We don't have that tradition over here in Australia, so I'm not really too sure what it's all about, other than what I saw within this movie. But yeah, this one was really good. It has some good kills in it, pretty good characters. I like the high school setting. Interesting weapon of choice for the killer as well. It's got a pretty good twist ending to do with the killer, and I liked the killer's outfit. So that is Bloody Homecoming. Next up we have Wrong Turn 2, and I'm sure most of you slasher fans are familiar with the Wrong Turn series. It's a pretty lengthy modern slasher franchise, I guess. And to be honest, I kind of lost interest after the first few movies, but Wrong Turn 2 is my favourite within the franchise. It's a great backwoods slasher, inbred style slasher flick, and I also like the whole reality TV storyline within this film as well. The inbred characters look really, really cool. I love the setting, and it's got some pretty brutal kills in it as well. So that is Wrong Turn 2. Next up, we have My Bloody Valentine 3D, which is the remake to the original My Bloody Valentine. Nowhere near as good as the original My Bloody Valentine. If you've seen my previous video, you already know my thoughts on the original. But in terms of a remake and a modern slasher remake at that, this one is really, really good. It's pretty cheesy, but it's just over-the-top fun. Got some pretty out-there kills in it, some pretty over-the-top kills. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun. So that's My Bloody Valentine 3D. Next up, we have Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and this is one that I probably don't need to go into too much depth about because it was very popular when it first came out, and for good reason, because it's a great movie, hence why it's on this list. Now, a lot of people probably wouldn't really consider this to be a slasher flick, and in terms of a traditional slasher movie, it's definitely not one of those, but that's what I like about it. It's unique and different in that aspect. And it's a lot of fun. The characters are great. Tucker and Dale are awesome characters in my opinion. It blends comedy with slasher elements and horror really, really well, and I'm very picky when it comes to that. And it kind of plays out, the deaths play out like accidents, which again is very different for a slasher flick, but everything works so well within this movie, so that's why I had to include it on this list. So that's Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Next up, we have Lost After Dark, and this is a really, really good, awesome 80s throwback style slasher flick. Very, very traditional, but it works really, really well. The thing that sort of sets this one apart from other slashers, though, is the sequence, the death sequence that the characters get killed off in, because normally within slasher flicks, there's a certain formula and the certain stereotype characters get killed off in a particular order normally. But it's kind of reversed in this movie, which I really, really liked, and it kind of took me by surprise. So, yeah, Lost After Dark is great, hence why it's on the list. Next up, we have The Killage, and this is a low-budget indie slasher from here in Australia, and it's extremely underrated. As far as I know, this is the only official release that this movie has had. So the Aussie Monster Pictures DVD, it's not even out on Blu-ray over here. This one was filmed up in Queensland on a micro budget, but honestly you wouldn't know it. Huge props go out to everyone involved within this movie, because for the minimal budget it had, it is so well done. This one is centered around a group of people going on a weekend retreat, and basically they get picked off one by one. It's very, very traditional in its style, very traditional. You have your very cliche, stereotypical slasher characters within this movie, but it didn't really need to do anything different. It works really, really well. The kills are fantastic in this, especially for the budget that this movie was made. So yeah, absolutely awesome. If you can get your hands on this movie or watch it somehow, I highly recommend it. So that is The Killage. Next up, we have Switchblade Romance, also known as High Tension, and I'm sure most of you are familiar with this if you're into French horror. This is part of the Fab French 4. Great movie. It doesn't have an overly high body count, but I really, really like the storyline within this. It has really good tension throughout. And when the kills happen, they are very, very brutal and really, really awesome looking. Some great effects within this film as well. A lot of people have an issue with the ending. I didn't mind it. I mean, it could have been better, but I didn't absolutely hate the ending. And overall, the rest of the movie was good enough to make up for the ending that was a little bit iffy. But yeah, overall, this has always been one of my favourite modern slashers, so that's Switchblade romance or high tension. Next up we have The Sleeper, and this one is absolutely amazing. I love it. And this one is a really, really good throwback to 80s style slasher flicks, right down to its setting. It's set sort of in a sorority house, dorm house, so very traditional, like a lot of the 80s slashers were in that aspect. And it also has a lot of similarities to Black Christmas as well. So if you're a fan of 80s slasher films set in sorority houses, definitely check this one out if you haven't already. And if you're a fan of Black Christmas, The Killer has a lot of similarities in style to Black Christmas, so that is The Sleeper. Next up we have Charlie's Farm, and this is an Aussie slasher, so maybe some of you overseas guys are not familiar with this movie, but this one comes highly recommended, obviously, because it's part of the list. But with that being said, it's a fantastic modern slasher. If you're a fan of the Hatchet series especially, check this one out. It's very, very similar in style to the Hatchet films, and it also stars Kane Hodder, actually. But yeah, this one is really, really good. It doesn't have an overly high body count, but the kills are really, really good. The characters are good, and as I said, if you're a fan of the Hatchet series, very similar in style to that. So that's Charlie's Farm. Okay, so next up we have the Halloween remake, and this may be a surprise to some of you that this is in a top 20 list. Probably not such a big surprise that it's in mine, but I know a lot of people don't like this remake. I like it. I've talked about this several times before, so I'm not going to go into too much detail, but I'm a fan of this movie. I think Rob Zombie did a pretty good job with his own take on the Halloween movie. So that's all I really have to say on that. I like the backstory of young Michael. The kills are really, really brutal, and the masks look really, really awesome within this movie as well. So that is the Halloween remake. Next up we have Dream Home, and this is an absolutely fantastic Asian slasher flick, and it's very, very unique because the killer is a female. That's not really a spoiler because you pretty much know from the start, because the whole story revolves around her. It's got a really, really good storyline, pretty in-depth storyline, good character development. The kills are brutal. They are vicious, they are nasty, very, very realistic, and the gore effects are amazing. So yeah, absolutely love this slasher flick. That's Dream Home. Next up we have Stitches, and this movie is awesome. It's definitely my favourite killer clown movie. Yes, I do prefer it to it. This is an Irish slasher flick, and it's a pretty short one. It's not very long at all, but it works really, really well. It's pretty much just your traditional slasher flick about a teenage birthday party, and a clown ends up coming to the party and killing off the guests. There's a little bit of a storyline to it. There's more to the story than that, but I don't really want to spoil too much in case you haven't seen it. But the kills in this, my god, the kills are some of the best kills, sort of set piece kills that I have seen in a modern slasher. They are a ton of fun, they look great, and they're all frigging awesome. So that is Stitches. Next up we have the Maniac remake with Elijah Wood, and this is my favourite remake of all time, and it's also my favourite slasher remake. In fact, I'd probably say I prefer the remake over the original film. Elijah Wood, to my surprise, pulled off the role of Frank extremely well. I love the way this movie shot in POV style, so it's very, very in your face. The kills are brutal, it's got an absolutely fantastic soundtrack, and yeah, it's just amazing from start to finish, so that is Maniac. Okay, and my favourite modern slasher of all time is probably not a big surprise to people that know my opinions on modern slashers, because I've mentioned this in previous videos, but it is Hatchet 2. I absolutely love this movie, and in terms of modern slashers, it is definitely my favourite. Obviously, it's my favourite within the Hatchet franchise as well. I love the cast in this one. It's not your traditional slasher cast, because most of the cast are mature in age, which I really, really like. It's something different to your traditional stereotypical slasher characters, and it works really, really well. Obviously, I love the setting within this movie. The kills are absolutely incredible. There's some amazing gore effects and death scenes within this film, and Tom Holland's in it. So yeah, absolutely love this one. My favourite modern slasher is Hatchet 2. Alright, so there you go. That was my top 20 modern slashers. Let me know what you think of my picks in the comments section below. Also, let me know some of your favourite modern slashers. Or better still, if you feel like doing a video response to this, I would definitely be keen to see some video responses. Doesn't have to be a top 20 modern slasher list. It could be a top 10. But yeah, if you guys feel like doing a video response, that would be awesome. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching.